What is up, everybody? It's Joe from JLW Games coming at you with another cool video, and today we're going to be doing another tutorial. I asked you guys after I did my building or skeleton building tutorial if you guys wanted to see transfer track, and you guys of course said yes, and I surprised I haven't done one before, but basically I'm going to be showing you today how to kind of build something simple like this. We're probably just going to use an RMC for the purpose of this video, and also I'm also going to be showing you how to do a stationary train inside of the storage shed as well. So if you want to make it look like there's a train on one of those tracks, you can do that as well. Now this does not require any mods of any point, but I am going to be using a mod as it improves and makes it better, if that makes sense. You'll see what I mean later on. You don't have to use a mod to make this work, but it's a lot easier and easier to hide something with a mod. So again, you don't have to have it to make this happen. There's also a mod to get rid of the water test dummies. If you're on console edition, I think that's already an option, but on PC there is no option to get rid of them. So I don't have that mod currently, but if I did, I would definitely take them off right here. So basically, let's go ahead and get started. Let me get my UI back up here. And we're just going to go off to the side to start a new one, and we're not going to worry about any station or anything. We're just going to be focusing on a transfer track as well. So a transfer track with a spare train. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and place down a station. I'm not going to be building a layout for this tutorial or anything. We're just going to be focusing on transfer tracks. So typically I like to put my transfer track right behind the station. You don't have to, of course, but that's typically where most of my transfer tracks goes, is right behind the station itself. So basically what you're going to want to do is make sure your transfer track piece is about just as long as your train. You want to make sure that it's long enough for that, and I would say that's actually a good length right there. So when you are building your layout, build this into your layout. Now, I will say real quick, if you do not care about having that stationary train, I will show you what you want to do, so you can just make it part of the same ride. I would say do this before you connect this with your layout. I would definitely just go ahead and make a 90-degree turn right here. If you have a mod, you can make this a little bit pretty small if you have the no track limits mod. If you don't have the mod, you can still do it, but it's just not as easy. Easy going, you know. Alright, so let's go ahead and click a few pieces there, delete the turn, and then this would be your track for the storage shed right here. So depending on how many trains you have is based on, you know, that's how many you would want to do. So I would definitely do this, and then you would go around and create your other just do another turn here, and then you can create your other track, and then however many tracks you want for your transfer track, your storage shed. So for instance, that would be like that. So if you don't want to have, this is only if you don't want to have the stationary train inside here, and this is what I typically do a lot. I'm probably not going to use the stationary train too often, because typically I will have full all of my trains on the track already, so I don't feel the need to have a stationary. But if you want to have one, just for looks and something, you can go for it. But like I said, this is what I would typically do if I'm just doing one without the stationary train inside one of those. But if you do want the stationary, that's what we're going to be doing in the tutorial today. But if you're not, go ahead and make those track pieces like that. Something else that we're going to do, I'm just gonna place like a break section here, just one little tiny section, so we can kind of know where that transition is. So let's say this is my brake run and this is my transfer track. So basically, we're going to go ahead and select this. I am going to go ahead and get rid of the track supports on this section. And if you can, do the optional catwalk. If you can't, for like wooden coasters, I think you need to have supports for the catwalk. It's kind of dumb, but you have to do it that way. Do it this way. So far we have that, and then we're going to want to create our storage building. So for that, I'm just going to do something super simple. I'm not even going to worry about like doing details for it or anything. So I'm going to line this up about where the track is going to be heading out. It's okay if we're over a little bit, and I want to put it right next to here. And this one's going to have 2 tracks, so I'm going to go ahead, and then you want to make this as just as long as a train, obviously, so a train can be stored inside. And it's all right if you go a little bit longer, because obviously that helps out. If you don't have the mod, I would actually suggest making this a little bit longer, because you're gonna have to hide something. And we'll again get into that later. So let's go ahead and get into our wood pieces. I'm just gonna use a wood texture here. Again, I'm not doing a lot of. I'm not gonna do a ton of detailing with this. I'm just gonna create a shed basically real quick, and just kind of get it started, I would say. And then the next step, again, you would already have your track pieces in there if you're not gonna have the stationary. If you are gonna have a stationary train in there, we're gonna go ahead and build another station here, and we want it to be about the same. Well, it actually doesn't matter if it's the same height. So I'm going to put this off to the side, and we'll reposition it later. So basically what you're going to want to do, if you do not have a mod, if you are not using any mods, you want to make sure you get rid of track supports for sure. And if you do not have a mod, go ahead and just use whatever it is, like a launch, a lift, and just go up and at least somewhat tall. It doesn't have to be super tall, but just enough to where you can sink this station underground. And then at the very top here, this is where it kind of gets tricky, because you're gonna have to add some brakes of some sorts, and try the objective here. Just so I would always just have this testing. The objective here is to get it to stop in here. So just get it some brakes, and you might have to adjust the brake forces, like the target speed. Let's go ahead and go like 2 miles an hour. I gotta start over. Typically around 2 miles an hour, and put this around 6 or 7, I think is usually a good spot. Let's go ahead and fast forward and see how far the train gets on here. And you can see it will come to a complete stop, and that's actually what we want. I actually might make this last piece a little shorter, so we get the whole train piece on there, and see how that goes. So yeah, usually a good spot is like 2 miles an hour, 6 meters a second, and that's pretty good. We might be able to go one more shorter, but I think that's actually a good spot right there. So if you don't have the mod, this is kind of what it will look like, and the idea is to hide this. You're going to want to hide this. So if you do not have the mod, again, this is if you do not have the no track limits mod, and then we'll sink this underground, and you'll basically want to make sure this track is level with your transfer track real quick. Doesn't have to be perfect, but at least somewhat close, because you're not going to have it inside. You're just going to have it nearby. So we'll do this. And I want it hanging out just ever so slightly, where the track's kind of hanging out a little bit. So when we do our little shed here, it will look good. And then you'll go in here, and since you'll do, if you want 2 separate trains in there, then you would do 2 separate tracks. However, chances are you don't need to fill in both of these. So I would go around like this, place another track. That way you have 2 tracks in there, kind of like so. Go ahead and test it, and you just continuously keep it testing like so. And you'll have a stationary train right there. So if you do have the mod and you want to make this shorter, all you really need to do is, if you know the mod, you can add launches and lift hills and it's invisible track. So like a linear synchronous motor, for instance, if I put that in here, it's going to be invisible, which works to our advantage. We just need to make sure. What happened to the front of the train? The front of the train's missing. That's weird. But you might have to make some changes and stuff like that until it comes to a complete stop. It's just going to take some getting used to, but for the sake of this tutorial, I'll go ahead and just leave it as is, as if you didn't have the mod, because a lot of people I don't think have the mod. But if you do have the mod, that's what I suggest, is just use one of the invisible tracks with like a launch or a lift, depending on what type of train you have, whatever model you're using, because it might not be the RMC model. And you can do that, or just to simplify things, you can just make the shed a little bit longer, and you can do this. Now, if you're wanting, I would definitely suggest the mod if you're gonna do some like interior work on your sheds. I don't usually do that much. I might make a catwalk or something, but I don't typically like make anything crazy. So we're gonna go with a 1H piece down here to kind of close this up, and I'm gonna show you guys kind of what I do style wise for this, kind of like so. And then I might do another 1H piece at the top here, and that kind of has an opening here. Now you can do a couple different things. If you want to kind of have a divider right here, you can, just by using like one of these, or you can just have one large kind of like storage shed door, which is what we're gonna do here, I think. But we do want to close up these sides a little bit, so we might go in here and use kind of these pieces maybe. Sometimes I always like end up going in and deleting some stuff, so that way it's not as open. So kind of like that, which kind of looks nice. And again, there is a mod to get rid of the water dummies if you do not want to have them in there, which preferably you wouldn't in this situation. So and then as for again, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on detailing this. This is just for tutorial sake. I'm just gonna throw a quick roof on here, just something super quick, so we can move on to the more important things. But we still want to enclose it real quick. That way we are where we want to be. Oh, this one, no. This one, no. This one, no. This one, no. There it is. I thought that's the one I clicked on, but I guess it wasn't. Interesting. Alright. This one. There we go. Now I got it. Again, I'm not gonna do details on this. Alright, so for this, I usually like to use the little shutter piece that usually goes next to windows. If you just type in shutter in your buildings, you'll find this little Bavarian window shutter. I don't know if it's a part of a DLC. If it is, you might just use some wooden pieces. You can just use some wooden pieces going across, and that would work as well. But if you do have these shutters, I recommend using the shutters. If you do not have these shutters, because again, I'm not sure if they're part of a DLC pack, but you can go with this style, or if you don't have any DLCs, I recommend just kind of using these wooden pieces and coloring them like a white, and then kind of like going down like this in place of the shutters. So you can like do something like that. The haunted pillars, if you have the spooky pack, would work best for that if you do have the spooky pack. But for sure, use these shutters if you have these shutters. Again, since it said Bavarian, I'm not sure if they're in a DLC pack or not. But we're gonna go ahead and copy these down. So if you don't know, just if you hold Shift and click your object, you can select multiple, and then Control X to do your moves like this. So we're going to do this. And then for an extra detail, I like to, I'm going to use the haunted pillar because it's the thinnest wood piece. Again, if you don't have the spooky pack, you can just use the other wood piece, but I like using this one because it's the thinnest. We can put this at the bottom to kind of make it look like the base of this little garage door. And then typically I like to give this an outline, so like I'll even recolor this, you know. It just depends on what you want to do. If you're doing a lot of details and stuff, which I typically like to do details. I don't know if you guys do, but yeah, it is all up to you. Let's use the shorter piece and get that the same color. Kind of like so. Now, if you do have like a stationary thing like this, obviously you would want it to be kind of showing. So I would recommend actually taking these pieces, if we select them real quick, and I'm going to split them from the building. That way you can individually open this up a little bit. Your little garage door, and you can actually do that. Apparently I didn't get all those selected. Apparently there's a piece there that I didn't get. And now I gotta get it together with this. I messed up. I messed up. Alright, add. Alright, there we go. Now we should be good. Make sure you select all the pieces, otherwise. There we go. So you can like raise this up a little bit so you can kind of reveal the train under there if you want. So I would do something maybe like that. Alright, so that is for your station building, or your building here. And typically you can build it off of this building. So let's edit this building. And typically you want to go to your framework. And now we just got to make the transfer itself. So basically there's a couple of different things you can use for this. It just kind of depends on what style you want. If you want thicker beams, you can use thicker beams, or you can use smaller ones. It doesn't matter. I have this little Aero Truss one, which is pretty good. This is a Theme Maker's Toolkit, but there's in-game ones you can use as well. Like if you go to regular scenery, and I think if you type iron, you get these real thick ones like this. Actually, we're going to use these ones, and we're just going to recolor it whatever. And we're just going to go underneath the track here, and I'm going to leave just a tiny bit of space. Not much, just a tiny bit of space between there. And we're going to go ahead and build a couple of these all the way down to where the transfer will end. Let's go ahead and select all of this. And actually what we're going to do is, if you type in rail, you'll get the little railroad locomotive track rail. And then I like to put this in the center of this. This is why we kept a little gap over here. I like to keep this in the center of this, and we can adjust this wherever we need to, so it kind of looks like it's on a part of that. So let's go ahead and do this, roll this on down, kind of like so, and you got a nice little transfer piece. Now we also want to got to give this some sort of support. Now again, you can choose whatever you want, kind of whatever style you want to go with. You can, sometimes I'll just do this and just use the same piece here as support structures as well, which I think we're going to do real quick. I think a lot of people do this sometimes too. So we'll just put enough support there, and then sometimes I also like to lift this one up a little bit. So there's like a little end piece there, and then go to scenery, and then we can go to art shapes, go to the smallest thing, and make it look like a little bumper here. Typically this is kind of like a bright color, like a yellow or something. That way it can't continue over there. And then we're going to go back over here and put in some footers for this. Just some nice little footers. And typically I like to go with the square ones, the fairly big ones, and then we'll change this color. Oh, wrong one. Change this color to match the color of our steel beam. Just like that. All right, we'll go ahead and select this whole thing, and then we can just copy this around evenly wherever we need it. So you can do 1, 2, 4, or not 1, but like 2 to 4. I'd say 2 to 4 for this. I think we're gonna put 1 there, 1 here, and then maybe 1 here. In fact, I might actually move this one over a bit. We're gonna move this one closer to the start there. That way it's a little bit more evenly spaced out, and we'll just do I'll do 3 here, kind of like so. And then that's kind of like the basis of your transfer track, and you can add different details, of course. Like we can do a catwalk, we can do something I like to do is find some sort of, typically, again, I like using ThemeMaker's Toolkit. You don't have to, there's stuff you can use, but I like trying to find like a nice thick cable. In fact, I think there's actually a pretty thick cable in here from the sci-fi set that you can also use. This one actually kind of works too. It's not really a cable, but, and then I like trying to like, I like the texture and like what this has, and I'll just like place this going down. And you could even do more framing if you wanted to. It's just really kind of up to you what you want to do with this details. And I always recommend try to find like a try to find some inspiration of what kind of transfer track you kind of want to go for. And then we could also do some safety netting or something underneath it, like just whatever kind of details you want to put in here. So like it's kind of up to you at this point, kind of what you want. But after you get like this going, you're kind of in good shape to do what you want here. Gotta build a few of these before it will let me. Sometimes the relative axis decides to be weird. I'm just gonna build this, and we can make like a little safety net if we want to, so no one can fall from that height. Not that they would fall, but you never know. And we're just gonna copy this down. And this is just kind of an extra thing. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. Like I said, just whatever kind of details you want to put in and such. Like if you have, pretty much all the steel coasters, you don't have to worry about the catwalk because it already has, it will allow you to have the catwalk without the supports. But like with wooden coasters or like the hybrid coaster, you have to have the supports as well in order to have the catwalk, which is, in my opinion, kind of weird and dumb. But so you kind of have to potentially either make your own, or if you have some in the ThemeMaker's Toolkit, you might have to go with it as well, because there are catwalks in there too. So if I go to Toolkit, we can go. For instance, I kind of like just use this random one here just because I'm lazy and wanted to do something fast. But you can make a custom catwalk too if you wanted to, obviously. Like if you're if you want to make a wooden one, which is probably a lot more fitting than this, because this is more of a B&M style. But this isn't recolorable either, so that kind of sucks as well. But yeah, just kind of do your thing, do your thing, and then get this to about where we want it. Not too far. And then I always like, again, this is all ThemeMaker's Toolkit stuff, so you don't have to do this stuff if you don't have any ThemeMaker's Toolkit items, but I highly recommend it if you do. So, and that's just to get like little consoles here, and boom, you kind of have like your transfer track going on. And this is very simple. Again, you can a simple transfer track, you can do a lot more details than this. Like obviously this is kind of bare minimum, and just to kind of get you started on your transfers. But like if you have an inverted coaster, sometimes it can be a little different, because obviously you have to create the frame over, but it's kind of just, you know, just doing this framing using these little I-beams, or these little, you know, these little truss metal pieces, and then I usually just use the railing, and that's basically it. So that's kind of how I do my transfer tracks. If you have different ways, you know, kind of explore and everything. But like I said, that's how you get your you know, just a stationary train here. And again, if you do use mods, there is a mod to get rid of the on Nexus mods, I think, where you can get rid of the water dummies. I might actually install it if I start doing this a lot more, but I might not. In the meantime, I typically just do this with no stationary, but that's just me. So anyways, I hope you guys found this tutorial helpful. Let me know in the comment section down below what kind of tutorials you want to see next in Planet Coaster, but this is just fun, easy, and it's really easy to do for the most part, for those trying to get into more realism and realistic builds, and just visually it looks nice and more realistic to have a transfer track if you're doing like a large scale coaster and have multiple trains, because obviously they have to, if realistic wise, they have to store those trains somewhere, so and work on them somewhere. So a lot of transfers come in different shapes and sizes, but this is kind of the generic one that I use on a lot of rides. You know, some B&Ms, RMCs, GCIs. I usually do a little bit different, but there's a couple different styles out there. But yeah, I hope you guys find this tutorial helpful, and let me know what tutorial you want me to do next. So make sure you guys have a great day and even cooler tomorrow, and thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Thank you guys, and goodbye.